Everyone has a bright light inside of them that deserves to be seen by the world. That's why it's time to shine the light on the extraordinary who are accomplishing phenomenal things. This is the Shine Out Loud Show with Lillian Ogbogo.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are, and welcome to another episode of the Shine Out Loud Show with me, Lydia Nabogo. Now, tonight, I get the pleasure of introducing and interviewing one of my definitely girl crushes here. So I have Yvette Ankrah, and she is a transformational coach, a recovering overachiever. She is she is actually, let me put some respect in this name. She is Dr. Yvette. As a PhD holder, she's an MBE recipient. This woman she's done it, she's seen it, and she is talking about how to become a recovering overachiever so that you can actually make an impact without burnout and without selling out your soul in the process. So, Yvette, welcome to the show.
Oh, what an introduction. Good evening, Lillian.
How you doing? No, you seriously, one of my girl crushes right here, and we're vibing with the red. We're vibing with the red.
We are.
So, when I think about the work that you do, and we've known of each other for a very long time, you are a transformational coach that says you do not empower anybody in terms of your clients. You do not empower the women you work with. You reconnect them to their power. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, the whole thing about empowering, it's like I'm giving you power. I don't give you power. I believe that we are all powerful beings, and sometimes we get disconnected from that. So I remind them of how powerful they are. I allow them the space to explore that and connect to that and find that within themselves. Particularly when you are stressed, you're burned out, you can forget that you are a powerful person. You have control over lots of things, even when you feel everything is out of your control.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of power, the personal power I help people find and connect to.
Okay. So now your career now is this amazing coach, and we're going to touch on, because the type of coaching you do is not the standard cookie cutter coaching. You've done NLP. Your modality list is not exhaustive. It goes on. And so we're going to touch on the type of coaching you do and why you do that. But first, we're going to look at, you started your career in journalism, PR, and marketing. How did you go from there to that?
So the journalism bit was the very first thing that I did, and I started writing when I was 16 years old. And I was doing that alongside studying and my weekend job. And in that space, I wanted to change the world. I wanted to, that was what my whole journalism career was about. I was going to be crusading journalism and change the world. And then I was also going to go into psychology and work in that space.
Right.
So that was the plan. Plans don't always kind of work out, right? So I then went on to do my degree and hated every bit of it and fell out of love with journalism. So, and I did a joint journalism and psychology degree. So understanding the human mind, human behavior has always been something I've been interested in. I've always volunteered and worked with people. Even when I was like 12 years old, I was a school counsellor. I kind of always done that kind of work. And throughout my career, of which I had various careers, I found that I was somebody that people quite happily spoke to, engaged with. I sort of ended up being an informal mentor. And then I decided it's something I wanted to do a bit more, and then went into business coaching.
Right.
And the business coaching side of things, I knew that work was important and needed to be done to help the women I was working with, because I started working with mums who were kind of new to business or who had businesses that people didn't know about.
Okay.
And that space led me into the deeper transformational coaching, which is what I loved doing. And the reason that that came about in that way was because I was finding that people were taking action. They were getting results.
Yeah.
And it was but. Things were coming up and I could see it. I could actually even have a conversation and see the block. And okay, there's this brick wall here. And what do I do? And no matter how many tools and techniques you use in terms of some of the coaching stuff, particularly if you're just focusing on the business, you don't get deep, you don't get underneath, you don't get under the real reason why they're scared of public speaking, or they don't want to pick up the phone and make a sales call, or they don't want to get engaged in something. So I brought in the transformational work specifically to help these women thrive and excel and just soar and do it in a way that was healthy for them.
Oh, yes, I like it. So, I love the fact that your work is really about, it's holistic, it's the business aspect, it's the internal stuff, it's the what I call the spiritual aspect of what are their blocks that come up. So you talk a lot about a self-care planner at the moment, and you have that for people to go and get. What is a self-care planner? Let's start with that.
The self-care plan is the heart of so many things, and so many people do not have one and neglect it. So when I talk about self-care, it's not just that lovely glass of wine and a bubble bath, which again is important, and the spa days. Love a spa day. But this is about the habits and practices you do on a daily basis that keep you going, mind, body, and soul. So when you look at a plan, you're looking at different aspects of your life. So we look at your business or your career, your physical well-being, your psychological well-being, your emotional, spiritual, and your kind of intimate relationships.
Right.
And you're looking at all of these different elements and you're saying, okay, what's working really well? And what do I want to improve?
Right.
And it's about finding ways that you have beautiful relationships in all of those spaces. And that's from relationships with colleagues or, or partners and clients, to your relationships with your partners and your children.
Okay.
And finding ways to make that work really well. Because you'll find if something's out of sync, it kind of makes you feel unbalanced. And when you start working on one area, you might find improvements on another. So, for example, if your sleep is off, you might find you're more irritable, you're not as productive, you're not doing as well. So if you kind of can get even good sleep going and good sleep habits, you'll find you kind of change a lot of other things too. So that's the whole plan. It's finding little ways of creating new habits and new behaviors that are healthy and supportive of your own well-being.
I like this. I do like this. And, this whole thing about sleep right now, sleep is like the biggest buzzword ever. It's like, how do I get better sleep? How do I build a sleep routine? So I think this is actually really, really crucial. So one of the things that I know you talk about is daily gratitude. What is the importance of daily gratitude?
Gratitude is one of the biggest game changers. And it's on several levels. So the practice of giving thanks actually changes the makeup of your brain.
Right.
So when you are regularly giving thanks, you can write a thank you letter to somebody. You don't even have to send it, but the impact is on you and your well-being.
Yeah.
It changes how you perceive things. You start to see things in more positive light. It helps you build resilience. So gratitude and the practice of it helps you change how you behave and how you show up.
Okay.
So it's actually incredibly important to kind of bring a gratitude practice into your life if you haven't got one. And what I do is I kind of say to people, right, pick 3 things you're grateful for on a given day, just 3. And if particularly in these times that we've had where it can be really tough, people can think, what is there? And it might just be the sun shone today. Someone smiled at me.
I woke up.
Yeah, I woke up. That's how I actually start every day. I start a day by giving thanks that I actually woke up.
Yes.
That's my first thought in the morning before I get out of bed, feet touch the ground. So, 3 things to start you off. And they're often the small things. And it's those small moments, those small joyful things that keep you going. The big things, winning the client, getting the pay rise, they don't happen every day. And we have to sustain ourselves every day, right? So the gratitude is huge. And I made a commitment to do a consistent gratitude practice, and I'm on day 768 or something like that of my
Oh, wow. That
practice.
is wow. I mean, let's think about it. There's only 365 days in a year. So you're on day 700 and something. That's a long time.
Yeah. And it's a game changer, because I've had so many things have happened in this time, and I would have responded very differently, I believe, if I hadn't have done this practice. So even with the pandemic and everything else that's happened, I believe that that's the reason that I've not folded in this time, because I can find ways of finding silver linings even in the most darkest of days.
Okay, so you know what? Let's look at this. Let's actually look at this daily gratitude practice. So you said it's 3 things to be grateful for. Do you have to write them down? Do you have to, if you're not a journaler, how can you be involved in this art of daily gratitude that is at the, as we'll say, at the lowest hanging level?
Quickest way is notebook and a pen by your bed. That's it. 3 things before you go to sleep. Also helps you unwind and puts you in a lovely frame of mind to sleep as well, if you're talking about sleep routines. Handwritten is best if you can do that, because it then activates your brain, which also says this is important, this is useful. So write by hand. But there are various apps that you can use as well to log it. You could just voice record it if that's something that's better for you. So find something that works for how you work and do that. So write by hand, voice record, use an app that might also remind you to do it. So it just triggers that activity for you.
Awesome. Could you just voice it? Could you just sit there, not putting it down on an app or anything? Could you just actually voice it? Or let's say you want to be grateful to your partner for being your partner. Could you just sit there and go, you know what? I'm grateful that you are blah, blah, blah today. Or I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful. Could you do something like that as well?
Why not? That'd be lovely. Wouldn't it be nice to feel someone's grateful for you? That'd be lovely to share.
It will feel nice. It will feel nice.
Yeah.
It definitely would.
Yeah, and people like to be appreciated, and we often don't show the appreciation of others as much.
So, let's keep on this self-care arena here, because this is something that there's a lot of misconception around. Like you said, there are those that think, oh, it's just a bubble bath and the face mask and we're good. And there's some people, especially if we look on social media, self-care again is now another buzzword. So if one truly doesn't understand how to delve deeper into self-care practices, what can they do to actually start that journey without feeling like, oh God, I can't do a bubble bath because that's not me. Face mat, that's not me. Is there more to it than just the surface stuff? And like I said, I am never going to be the one to denigrate a bath, because we both know, like I said, if a good bath was good enough for Cleopatra, it's good enough for me.
Yeah. From one queen to another, of course. Yeah, in terms of the practices, it will all be dependent on what's good for you and what makes you feel joyful. So it's very individual. So you might love going for a run. That might be the thing that lights your fire, makes you feel good. It's a mindful practice because you're just, in that zone, and it helps you feel amazing.
Right.
It's not my thing, but that might be it. So I don't know. However, if that's your thing and you haven't done it for a long time, it's not there, and you've missed it, bring it back. It might be things that you're not doing or you stop doing that bring you joy or bring you fun or be fun in your life. I mean, it's always difficult with different things, but there are always some things that you can do. Like, for example, if you love reading and you find that you're only reading for work and there's no pleasure involved in the reading anymore. When's the last time you picked up a novel just for fun? So it's about looking at your practices, looking at what you're doing that brings you that joy, that fulfillment. It's about filling your cup. Yes. What fills your cup? And, is it spending time with your friends? Is it going for a walk in nature? Is it prayer? Is it meditation? What are the things that you need to fill your cup? What have you stopped doing? What do you want to start doing again? Is there something new you want to try? So that's why you know, I can't say, here is your self-care plan, this is what you go and do. It's got to be individual for you and got to work for you. Now,
Okay.
I love a spa day. I'm not going to knock a spa day. So for me, I love that. But then I also know that if I don't exercise or meditate or spend time with my friends laughing, I know that I don't feel good. I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's lots of different things. Cuddles with my baby. Well, it's not a baby anymore, but you know, you know, he's like butt to here on me. But having a cuddle, those things are joyful and are nice. I love to laugh. And I'm thinking, okay, it's gone for a few days and I haven't laughed. I haven't had a belly laugh. I need something to bring that. What's going to give me a belly laugh, you know? Because I know that those things help me feel good and help me feel whole and fill my cup.
Okay. So it's about that filling our bag up, filling ourselves with joy. Now, you know, you spoke about books, and I remember that growing up, I was an avid reader, still am, but I've been reading more for work. And I had a collection, an enviable collection of Mills and Boons. People don't judge me. Don't you dare.
I was having this conversation with my husband about how I used to read Mills and Boons books and how I used to get through 7 a week in my teenage years.
I had Mills and Boons. Then I graduated from Mills and Boons to the Harlequin books.
Oh, yes.
Then you felt more grown up.
Of course.
I need to go look for some of those. I actually brought, when I moved back to the UK, I brought some with me and I gave them away. It's like, I'm tempted to go, hi, do you still have those books? Can I get them back now?
my friend and I, on the Mills and Boon book, they used to have a section in the library. And you know, they all always the bright colours.
Yes.
Colour coordinated the whole thing. So from the back of the room, you could see this beautiful rainbow of colours. We did the whole shelves.
I mean, that sounds reasonable. I mean, how else are you supposed to do it? And because I had all the blue ones.
Yeah.
It's like I collected all the blue ones, and then you get the pink ones. And then, you know, Harlequin have little colors that run in between. Mm-hmm. And so, you know what? That actually is beautiful.
Yeah. The librarians were not pleased, but it was fun to do. And it was a beautiful thing to see because it was at the back of the library. So when you went all the way to the end, you could just see this beautiful sea of colour.
Oh, boy. Okay. So we can sit here and talk about this for a while.
This is probably for another show, right?
I know. So let's talk about this. So we know that you talk about self-care practices, and one of the things that you describe yourself as is a recovering overachiever. And a lot of your work now is focused on burnout and just what that looks like for us as women and not just for women, but individuals. So what are some of the signs of burning out, and how do we mitigate them beyond the man up or crack on advice?
Yeah, that is probably how you end up getting burnt out in the first place, because we keep going and we don't stop. And when we start noticing the signs, we ignore them. So the reason I talk about a lot of the stress and burnout is because that's part of my personal journey. So I burnt out not just once, several times, because hey, once is never enough, right? Never do things by heart, right? So
exactly. I mean, you gotta really run through it to go, I know what this feels like. You
really got to push the body all the way so that until it crashes, and then you might listen. So, that was my kind of journey of pushing my body and having the response of illness and ill health, and just continue to push through, right? And when I talk about how my self-care used to be, it was, I'll just go for a day at the spa and I'll be fine. Go back to working my 12-hour days, go back to doing all the things I was doing, eating absolute rubbish, constantly fueling myself with mostly alcohol and chocolate to get through my days. And it was not a healthy way of being at all. And not understanding that, oh, right, maybe your body would like something else, like sleep and actual proper food and, resting times and ways to actually stop the noise in the head and to shut down and to have peace and space. And so with the burnout, I always say burnout's a little insidious. It kind of creeps up. So you start with the feelings of stress. So we all respond to stress differently, but in terms of how your body responds, you know, you get increased blood pressure. You'll find you're, you know, feeling of, I need to do something, need to go and do something, that feeling of adrenaline going through your system because you've got that going on. You might find you've got headaches, backaches, stomach aches, little twinges, and little kind of something's not just quite right.
Yeah.
A little bit of irritability, perhaps. You find you a little snappy with people. So that's when you're in the stress phase. And that's great because we need some of that sometimes to get us through.
Yes.
To get us through a situation, to get us out of danger. And what your body is doing is behaving as if you are in danger. So it's raising the body's alarm system.
Yeah.
And switching it on. Now, what will happen is problem goes away, stressful deadline, car moving speedily, whatever it is that's conjured that feeling of stress. And then it goes down and you go back into, okay, I'm chilled, I'm safe, I'm good now. And that's what's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're running that all the time and the body doesn't switch off, it doesn't go into that mode. The alarm system is constantly going. You're constantly feeling that you've got to do something. You're constantly stressed out. You're constantly worried. You're constantly anxious. So you're in that space. You're finding that you're not probably eating right. You may be eating too much or too little. You may be, and what you're eating, you may be again fueling and filling those gaps with caffeine or alcohol or drugs, even people will turn to. You may find that your sleep is not too great. And you're starting to feel tired. But then when you get to the burnout phase, that's when you've gone over to the other side. You don't have the energy. You've got extreme fatigue. You can get memory loss. You know, you're not able to, your cognition is affected because you're not able to process things as quickly anymore.
Yep.
You may be exhausted. Yeah, exhausted all the time, but you might not be able to sleep or just want to sleep all the time. So you can have both those phases with sleep. And again, your passion, your desire, the thing that gave you joy, you just can't be bothered with it anymore. And the thing is, if you are someone who works at quite a high level, that stressful phase can become your norm. Yeah. And you assume that this is how you are supposed to feel all the time because you've lived in it for so long, you have no idea what it's like not to be racing at 100 miles an hour, not to kind of slow down and stop. And I say this because that was me. Hello. And in my case, the fueling behind that was the story. And that's what I do with a lot of my clients. What story are you running? Yep. The story was, to be successful, I have to work hard. Working hard means working all the time, being the one that's always showing up, not stopping, you know, smiling and excelling all the time. Even though you feel like absolute rubbish, show up and you show up and you show up. Yeah. And again, you reward yourself with the odd break, holidays, you live for your holidays. And you think, great, I've done that now. But then you go back and do exactly the same thing on Monday morning. Yeah.
Okay. So you know what? I think what we need to do is get you in for just a singular, I don't even want to call it an interview, we'll call it a masterclass on how to beat this burnout thing, because I think we're talking about burnout in isolation here, but there are many things that feed that burnout, because you've mentioned it, this idea that the story we're telling it is we have to achieve, so achievement looks like this. So how do you, and I think there's a thing that we need to look at, because this is the story. To be a high achiever, we're told we must be 24/7. We must be on all the time. So what's the difference between achieving and overachieving?
Just that. You can still achieve. You can still, I'm no less driven. And you know this, Lillian, I am no less driven, right? That drive and ambition is still there. I just do it in a healthier way. I do it where I respect my body, where I care for myself, show myself compassion, love, allow myself the grace to fail, allow myself the grace to not always have to show up.
Can you please say that again one more time, just for the folks in the back? Yeah. That part about the grace to fail, please say that one more time.
So I allow myself the grace to fail.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's having to learn that I cannot do it all. I cannot do it all myself. I don't need to do it all myself. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's not, asking for help doesn't mean that I'm suddenly completely incapable. I can ask for help and it's okay. Because often when you are busy or achieving, people assume you've got it. They say, yeah, she's got this. And they don't even offer to help. So you're like, okay, I'm drowning here, people. And I need this support. And then you've got this whole idea of, okay, I can't even ask for this support. And who do I ask? And how do I ask? So you don't. So you're silent. And because people assume that you are someone who's got on top of their game and can do it, they don't even ask if you're okay. And mostly you're not okay. You're just really good at showing that you can get on with it. And also because you're used to working that level, it takes a long time before you actually crack.
Yeah.
But you might crack earlier, but it takes you a longer time to crack because of this overachieving streak that you have within yourself. So yeah.
Or you've actually cracked, but what you've done is put plasters over the crack, dressed it up, put a bit of lipstick on the crack and be smiling and going, yeah, we're good, and looking like a joker.
And I'd do that, I'd rock up to work. In this particular role, I burnt out the first time. I was working in PR and doing those ridiculous hours, but on paper, my life looked great. I was, I worked in a PR firm. I was in my 20s. I had, I'd worked my way up in the company. It looked good. My clients were getting great results. It was all, it was wonderful. But I was not well. I was a wreck. But I didn't show it at work. I mean, there were times I did turn up, cry in the toilet, fix my face, and then go back out. And that's not healthy. And it just, I got to this point where I'm like, I need to not be here. I quit. And I went to Ghana, where my people are from, and I was in my grandmother's house, like her compound. My mother's got a house next door. And I remember lying there thinking, I have no job. What am I doing? And what do I do the rest of my life? Because I was like, I don't know where to go or what to do. I just was lying there kind of asking for some kind of sign. And I, was able to change what I did. And I actually did go back, but on my terms. I changed my contract and went freelance, earned more, and then changed careers. So I always like to make things a little bit interesting. But what I did was the low level. So if you're thinking of the neurological levels of change, right, we have different levels of change. So we have the environmental, we have our kind of skills, we have kind of our behaviors, and we have identity, values, and purpose right at the very top scale. And environment is an important factor. But we change the environment, we can make great changes in our life. But if you just change the environment and you change nothing else, you get low level change.
Okay.
And I was doing that. I was always changing my environment. I would change the job. I would change, I'll move house or something, or I'll do something different with my hair. I'll change the environment that I was in. But what I didn't do was work on me.
Yeah.
I didn't do the deep work because that's the harder work.
I mean, that deep work, nobody tells you just how deep it goes. So it's a doozy.
Yeah, I didn't understand the stories I was carrying. I didn't know that I was even carrying these stories. I had no awareness of that. And as I kind of went on this journey of trying to find out what the hell was going on with me and why I was constantly doing this, I ended up having to go through that space and go through that journey. So there's nothing I don't do with clients that I haven't had to go through myself. So, because it's important as a coach, I believe, to have done that, and to have also, whatever you're training in, that you've had to go through that experience for your own journey yourself. And my coaching practice is all about awareness, ownership, and change. And I had no awareness, so I didn't take any ownership, and I didn't make any changes. So I kept doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result.
Okay, so you were having a Punxsutawney Phil kind of moment and Groundhogs.
Yeah, but I was succeeding, and that's why, or perceived to be succeeding. So I'm like, well, if it's not broke, why change it? Because I'm still managing to get what I want done. But the cost was my health. The cost was my, in the long run was my health. But that was the whole thing. It's like, well, how I studied for my GCSEs, how I studied for my A levels, right? I had this very poor study ethic, which was kind of burn it through the night and go and pass, right? After a while, that doesn't actually work. It's not effective. And then you have to find a new strategy, right? And then come to do the PhD. That doesn't work. You can't do that. You can't do any of those things. So finding new strategies and finding things that work and do it in a healthier way that's holistic and good for me was the other thing I had to find.
Okay. That's just powerful. That's all I'm going to say on that. That whole journey about that whole thing about burnout, and especially for women, I think that's needs to be told and help shift the stories. Now, I have a friend who is constantly lamenting on missing their daily commute, as that was really and truthfully, from what it seems, part of their personal self-care practice. Now, due to the pandemic, they don't have a commute. They work from home. So they have that they're less able to get time away. So what are the things they could consider doing to create some of that time where they had that time, that walk home to think, unwind, decompress? What is it that they can do?
Build that into their routine. So what's happening with the pandemic is that without the morning and evening unwind, we're just kind of starting the day, turn the computer on, working all the way through and constantly. So creating breaks for yourself and creating a morning routine and an evening routine.
Yeah.
So if you're not commuting anymore, how would you like to start your morning? So, I mean, it's different for me as well, small person. I've got to do school run now, back at school. But again, that's a slight adjustment. But if you want to get up and exercise or pray or meditate or drink water or go for a walk, what do you do in the morning to energize yourself, to get yourself ready for your day, to put yourself into that space? And even blocking out that time as if you were having a meeting, but the meeting's with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will feed this back to them.
Yeah. Have that in the morning. And then in the evening, if you've got a room that you're dedicated to working and that you can shut the door on, have this kind of, I finish and shut the door and leave. If you don't have that space, because a lot of us don't, close the laptop or cover the computer with something. Even I've advocated even changing furniture around. So if you're using the same room for everything, have it one way when you're working and turn a chair the other way, or do something different so that you know that you are no longer in workspace.
Oh, okay. That's a fabulous idea.
And changing the energy. So even if you've got a dining table, if you sit in one space all the time for that, sit in another space when you're eating, or sit in another space when you're reading, so that's disconnected. So you're anchoring yourself to work mode here. I'm in relaxed mode here. So even with small space, you can just make a subtle change. But also with yourself. I mean, I know we're living in the leggings and the tracksuit bottoms and the hoodies and the cardigans or whatever it is. But you might say, okay, in work mode, I put my face on. In work mode, I put a nice top on. In work mode, I wear perfume. And then in evening mode, as if you would when you came home from your commute, you might come home, change clothes, because that signifies the change of the day.
Okay.
So, you've trained your body to come home, take the shoes off, get rid of the bra as soon as humanly possible, and, do those kind of things.
From the front door.
Yeah, exactly. Just, I don't know how close you are to your neighbours, right? So, but that kind of whole idea of we have rituals and we created rituals and you don't even realise it is a ritual until it's changed. So it's recreating new rituals and using essential oils, if you like that kind of thing as well. Maybe burn an oil when you're ready to relax, and that's your unwind. That's your kind of trigger to your brain that now you're in your unwind time. This is your I'm not working. Switching off phones. If you've got a work phone, switch off. So, because they're not paying you for that time. So switch off your phone or put it on silent or whatever it is, so that you're not necessarily got all of those distractions as well. And give yourself some space to do that. I mean, there's even meditations that I've sometimes done where I do the meditation to help me unwind from the day, to get back into that space of disconnecting from my work and embodying myself now into my private time and space.
I like that. I remember on my commute, what I do when I left the office building, we had this bollard outside work, and I will just touch it as I was leaving work. And for me, that was me just kind of leaving my work, scraping my hand on it, going, I'm leaving my work self here. And I pick it up when I come in the morning. It's like, I'll just rub my hand there and go, that's work done. So if you can't do that, you can even go outside, walk around the block, and then come back to your front door, because that's another way as well. So that's actually quite powerful tips. And so we're looking at this, and you've even, answered the question for like, women now are doing, let's look at this, women are doing double shifts. In fact, I don't know if it's a double shift anymore. It might be a quadruple shift. So they have, when it was kids were at home, they were homeschooled, they were cook, they were cleaner, they were all of that. And then they still had their day job. So how do they balance their own self-care, living in that situation and still going, I have to earn a living. I have to do this. I have to be on time for my deadlines. I don't want Karen to take my promotion. How do they balance all of that and still have self-care?
Okay. So having found myself in that same space, two things: mindful moments and breath work. And what I mean by mindful moments are moments where you can take a break and just rest. And they're not going to be lots of them. It's not like half an hour. We're talking 5-minute little breaks here. So doing things like having a cup of tea, making a cup of tea, if that's, if you like that, or whatever drink. But the reason I say tea, because there's a process involved, or coffee. There's a filling of the kettle, there's putting the kettle on, there's the getting the tea, stirring it, adding any milk or whatever it is. There's a whole process you do when you make a cup of tea. And if you just focus on doing that process and you don't think of anything else, you're just focusing on making that cup of tea, it becomes a mindful practice, because you're just focused and present. You're not doing anything else. You're just in that moment. And when you're doing that, there's no room for anything else. You're just focused. And so finding mindful moments in the day. Another trick is brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand.
Okay. How does that help?
Because you have to think about it. You can't think about anything else, because even if you're brushing your teeth, you're not thinking, okay, I've got to do the shopping and I've got to. So even in that space, you're not switching off. Whereas if you do it with your non-dominant hand, you can only think about brushing your teeth, because it's something you have to think about now, because you're not used to doing it.
Yes.
So any mindful practice is something that gets you out of your head and back into your body.
Okay.
So that you're not up there with all those millions of tabs that are open and all the different things that you're juggling, right?
Yes.
It's about being able to calm down that noise. So finding mindful practices. That's why I said the running is a mindful practice for people. Reading, and this idea that we've got to be still, it's not always still. Walking can be a mindful practice if you're present. It's being present and getting out of your head and into your body.
Right.
The breath work, as I mentioned, breathing is so underrated as an activity. We just do it because we breathe, right?
Yes, we got to survive.
Yeah, we don't think about breathing. But the practice of using, there's different breath techniques, different counts of breath, there's a range of them. But at the very basic level, just focusing on feeling your breath coming in and out of your body, and just doing that for 2 minutes, just gets you just out of that head into the body and just grounds you a little bit. So without you having to think about different counts, because I do various different counting methods, whatever, and they've all got different ways of working, but just that focus can get you to a lovely place of just feeling calm, feeling good, and ready to take whatever the next thing that comes your way.
Okay. All right. So that we'll take note of that as well. So as a recovering overachiever, how do you handle professional rejection?
Oh, Professional as in like clients saying no?
Clients, or let's say you've gone for a business bid, you got rejected, or if you were still in the world of corporates and there was some kind of rejection, or you were applying for a job role and you didn't get it, how would you handle a professional, or just actually if we drop the professional, how would you handle a rejection?
I would say much better than I used to.
I love your honesty.
Definitely. As I said, because I now bring in that self-love, self-care, compassion side of it, with that failure or perceived failure, it's a case of what can I learn? What can I do better next time? Sometimes it's almost, actually, was this truly the right time? Because sometimes things happen and you want it to happen, but actually it's not the right time for you. Now is not right. And that may not always be obvious in that moment while you're on the floor licking your wounds and whimpering. But later on, it's actually, do you know what? It's a good thing I didn't get that contract, because I've got this other contract and I would have been overwhelmed and I'd have been swamped. And actually, what they were wanting for the amount was just phenomenal. And you know what? We're good, actually. It's worked out really nicely that we didn't get it. So sometimes with that, with a little bit of step back from it, it's like, yes, okay, I'm good with that. Other times it is that I'm going to sit and whimper for a little bit, and then I'm going to get up and then do all of that, what did I do wrong? What went right? What went wrong? And go through that. But at the moment, I'm here, crumpled in a heap on the floor. I'm going to stay here for a bit. Then I'm going to get up. And it's the getting up and allowing yourself to have that moment of self-pity, if you want to call it, or whatever it is, but allowing that, saying it's okay to not feel good if you didn't get something that you truly wanted. It's okay to be annoyed or angry, even express it, experience whatever those emotions are. And then what are you going to do about it?
What comes next?
What comes next? It's not the staying there. It's acknowledging, feeling, owning, and then how you move through.
Okay. Yeah, this is a big topic, because I think that there's so much around that whole rejection piece and how we are expected to behave and how we are expected to turn up. But I'm going to put that on the back burner, because I want to ask, from your perspective, is there too much pressure on Black women to be magic and super and always to be the one that got it?
It's funny you say that, because I was actually having this conversation in my head the other day.
As you do.
As you do. And I was thinking this particularly from the perspective of Black women, because that whole idea of working harder because you are a Black woman.
Yes.
In a Western world, particularly. That notion that you've always got to be more than. And that, to me, all of these things are recipes for burnout. And not feeling as if we are allowed to fail in those environments.
Yes.
So I do think there's a hell of a lot of pressure on women, particularly Black women. And that's where the imposter syndrome comes and kicks butt so much. Because there's all of that pressure. I mean, I remember having a conversation, like, I'm surprised we don't have more nervous breakdowns than we do.
Well, we probably are, but remember, we are the strong Black women, so we just keep calm and carry on and have that
trope as well.
Yeah,
that trope of I have to be the strong Black woman. I have to be the strong. The problem with that's likely to do us so much harm. The idea
it's already done us so much harm.
It's done us so much harm. It's going to keep doing us if we keep staying in that space of we have to be. No, we don't.
And that comes with my issue with Black Girl Magic. I mean, I get it. I love it. On one hand, I get it and I celebrate it. On the other hand, I'm like,
do you know, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. I've got a really good friend who really does not like that kind of whole kind of dialogue of Black Girl Magic. And there's this kind of, and I understand the reasons why it's there and why it is needed, because there is that whole not putting us anywhere, not being put on any kind of pedestal.
Yeah.
Right. So I get why that's needed to kind of elevate, uplift. But then there's the other side of it, which is the feeling the pressure to live up to these expectations, which you may not always live up to for yourself, for your family. And that kind of idea of how we have to show up for others is kind of part of what I was doing within my PhD research about how we kind of, with identity and belonging, how we show up in those spaces and what's expected, particularly family expectations of us. And there's a lot of pressure. There is a lot of pressure there. So there's external pressure in terms of family, society, norms, culture, stereotypes, tropes, all of these different things. And then there's your own view of who am I and how do I show up?
Yeah. And then if those two are in conflict.
Yeah. And I'd say the joy of age, of having, done all that. And now being, going into later decades, it's a different energy. But what I've noticed with a lot of the younger women, they're not doing it. They're saying, I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to burn out. I don't want to do this. And they're taking different paths earlier.
Yes.
My generation, we kind of got this in our late 30s, kind of early 40s. Like, okay, right. But I'm noticing the younger generation are kind of, I don't want to follow these particular paths. I want to forge my own way.
And that's very powerful.
It is powerful. And I'm noticing that more from the dialogues on Twitter and on Instagram. But I'm thinking, I'm 10 to 15 years older than some of these women. And it's like, okay, that was not the path that was open. Or I didn't feel or believe it was open at that time.
So I think there's a lot to unpack, and there's so much when we start thinking about that is, like you said, there's the thought that that wasn't available to us, that wasn't a conversation, and it wasn't a conversation at that time. And so I think there's, again, going back to what you said about the grace, is giving us that grace to go, okay, we didn't know what we didn't know, now we know, and now we're like, it's almost like the new era of burning the bra and going, I'm burning the magic. Y'all can keep your magic. I just want to be person.
Yeah. And to be allowed to kind of stand in your own power and do that. And the whole, especially when there are so few of you in a space.
Yes.
That's particularly a hard one when you're looking around and nobody looks like you.
And the extra energy and effort it takes to be the one and only in that space.
Definitely, which is why, having networks, having support is crucial. Yes. It is crucial. And it may not be in that organization, it might be outside of it, but you find your network, you find the people that can hold you up, that you can speak to after a long day in the space of doing that. Because it's almost like wearing that mask in that space and not being able to be your authentic self. And that takes a lot of energy to do that on a daily basis. So that's something that I would say I did a lot of, and that contributed to the burning out of having to uphold something that was not true to me. And now it's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not compromising on any of that. I don't do that. And it's only because I had done it and learned from that I can make that kind of statement now. And as I said, it's a very big difference between 21, 22 in a job, and now me in my sort of mid-40s.
Okay, you know what? Let's shift gear a bit, because that was kind of a heavy question then.
Yeah.
What is forest bathing? Because girl,
forest bathing. Okay, so forest bathing is a Japanese concept where you basically just go and walk in the forest and surround yourself with those trees and just be in that space. So just walking through the forest and just spending time with nature, but it has to be forest, like lots of trees.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful kind of thing to do, just being present in that space, just kind of absorbing the nature, the sounds, the smells, and just being in there and just being with nature.
Okay, so that's totally a different concept from what my brain conjured up. I'm like, whoo, forest
There's no
bathing is
nudity involved, unless you want to be, and if you do, be careful, you may get arrested, right? So,
that's what I was thinking. I'm like, oh, this is a risky self-care path because I don't want a police record.
no. Clothing is not optional necessarily with this one.
Okay, so like I said, forest bathing, it brought up images, so I had to ask.
Yeah, no, it's not a nudist colony occupation necessarily. It is literally just being in nature and spending, but it's not just a quick trip. It's like spending a good couple of hours in the forest, in the woodlands, and just being present in that space and just kind of marveling at the creation that is there, really.
Okay, so what are you listening to that gets you dancing in your kitchen?
Okay, so many people may not realize this, but I'm into old school house and garage. So I love old school house and garage. I also love funk, old school R&B. So I will sort of go to that space in the 90s. When I think R&B, I like the R&B at the most. So
that's when anything after the 90s does not exist. It doesn't.
So it's kind of, I will listen to that. I mean, I'm a big fan of Omar. I love D'Angelo, Maxwell. Then I'll switch and listen to some Anita Baker, some Tina Marie.
Okay, where do you stand on Boys to Men? Let's have this out now. Where do you stand on Boys to Men?
I'm not a big Boys to Men fan. Sorry. And me and Mary J.
The love is gone. The love is gone.
But then, in the newer kind of genres of music, Savage. When I hear Savage, I like that track. That kind of the idea that we are not just one kind of woman, we are all different kind of women, and that kind of energy that comes through. And I kind of like Beyonce in the most recent years. But yeah, I listen to a lot of different music. Music is a beautiful state changer, and it's my musical taste. I'm a massive Prince fan. Absolutely huge Prince fan. Completely.
Oh, okay. So, favorite Prince song. And I know that might be tasking for you to pick one. Okay, pick two.
From which genre? From which era? Come on.
Okay, so let's go from his formerly known as Self era, and you can pick one song. And from his 80s going into the 90s era, pick one from there.
Oh, that's still really hard. Okay. Because like his first album was created the year I was born, right? So, and my first 7-inch, because if people don't know what 7 inches, it's like the size of a dinner plate, small little record with a hole in the middle that I used to buy, was actually When Doves Cry. So that was the first single I ever owned, bought from Woolworths, was When Doves Cry. And I absolutely love that, and I still love that track to this day. But then I've seen him live several times, and so you're talking maybe Diamonds and Pearls album when he was in that phase.
What about his 3121 phase?
3121 wasn't bad. That was the last concert that he did that I went to, so I was at that concert. So 3121, that actually wasn't a bad album, actually. There's probably only about 2 tracks I don't like on it. So I am, for my 30th birthday, my husband actually bought me like a lot of the back catalogue that I didn't own. So he bought me like loads of CDs. And I like obscure B-side tracks that people don't often play of Prince. I mean, when I say I'm a fan, I am a fan.
Okay. All right. Okay. This is good to know. This is good to know. So we've come to that part of the show where you get to celebrate,
Hmm.
shine a light on a person, a thing. It could even be yourself. This is the so loud moment. So what is your so loud moment, Yvette?
You,
Oh, moi?
yes,
Um,
you, Leland. So, as you've mentioned, we met 5 or 6 years ago now,
yeah,
I do believe
yeah.
it is, online randomly. We have yet to meet in person, which is bizarre,
I know.
absolutely bizarre. But your energy, your drive, the stuff that you do, and you don't shine a light enough on yourself. So I'm celebrating you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I think once this crazy pandemic stuff is over, we are definitely having a spa day. That kind of spa day that sneaks into a whole weekend and nobody sees us.
Yes, as long as it involves chocolate champagne and massages, I'm there. We're good.
You can have the champagne, I'll have some chocolate, and we'll both split the massages.
Okay, excellent.
So I have one last question for you. If
Okay.
you woke up tomorrow morning with
Mhm.
everything gone, what would you create?
What I have now.
Ah, I
What I
like
have
that.
now. Because I
I like
absolutely love what I do. I
that. I
truly do.
like
I truly love helping women to thrive. I truly love holding that space. It is a privilege to do it. It's an honor to have people to let me in their lives like they do. Um, yeah, I would do what I do.
Oh, I like that. Okay, I know I said that was the last question, so I'm going to do my Columbo thing. One more thing. How can people get in contact with you?
Okay, I am on various social media platforms, so you can tweet me. I prefer Insta or LinkedIn, to be honest, if you really want to reach out. Insta or LinkedIn under Yvette Ankrah. I keep things simple. My website is also incredibly simple, yvetteankrah.com. You can reach out to me that way. You can, there's a phone number there if you wish to. So reach out to me on social media. The only thing I don't accept are carrier pigeons, just starting with. All right.
Messy,
So
messy.
that's a pigeon. But yeah, feel free to connect with me. There's some free stuff on my website. Download it. Join my newsletter so you can just hear what I'm up to and get some tips and stuff along the way. Or you can even book in a little session, so which is perfectly free, so I can find out what's up for you and how I can support or signpost.
Okay, folks, you've heard it. Reach out to the woman, but don't use carrier pigeon. Don't, it gets messy and then
Yeah,
RSPCA people come for us.
exactly.
So reach out to her via social, Insta, LinkedIn. If you must use Twitter, tweet at her.
Mhm.
But reach out. Discover about how to take charge of your self-care, discover how to recover from burnout, and discover how to make an impact that with ease so that you do what it is you're here to do without giving away your soul or
Mhm.
burning out from all corners. This is the woman for you. So you know what to do. If you love this show, drop us a message. If you want to reach out to her and you've forgotten her website, it's going to be in the show notes at the bottom of the page. You can reach out to her from there. So, Yvette, thank you for being on the show. I cannot thank you enough. And
Thank you
I
for
have
having
just
me.
enjoyed interviewing you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So, guys, same time, same place next week. You know how to do it. Reach out to me if you want to be on the show. If you know someone who is perfect for the show, you know how to do. Hit us up on our website. Send us an email at let's talk at shineoutloud.tv. Hit us up on social. We are at Shine Out Loud on Insta, and drop me a message personally on LinkedIn at Liliana Bogo. So I'm going to say good night, farewell, and we'll be together again soon. All right. Bye.